Okay, let's get this party started. Today's going to be a great day because y'all know we've gotten a decent amount of these dynasty mock drafts underway. I mean, we've used kickers as rookie picks, which is what we will be doing with our actual dynasty startup drafts in a couple months that kick off. But what's going to be more exciting now is we get to figure out actual rookie value in how people are looking at these players from a dynasty perspective. We just sent the link out over there on Patreon for people wanting to go and hop into this draft with us. And yes, you heard that right. Sleeper has gone through and Sleeper has added in the rookies here. Let me go and make sure we send this link out just to Discord to everybody. You know what? We're not going to send it to Discord. We'll send it to the people that were able to come out to the live stream right away, that are subscribed to the channel, that hit that bell next to the subscribe button. Of course, thank y'all all so much for everybody in the chat right now. And one thing I ask is, for the love of God, do not join this startup draft if you are going to be leaving in 30 minutes. Please make sure you only join this draft if you have the next hour where you can spare to hop into a draft with actual rookies in it. And yeah, I'm just excited to see where guys like Treylon Burks, Breece Hall, Matt Corral go, because of course this is going to be a super flex draft as well. I just sent the link out in the live chat for anybody wanting to hop in. I feel like we've given everybody over there on Patreon enough time to get to get into the draft if they wanted to play. Thomas is in here. Happy to see Thomas out. It's 9:30 in California on a Saturday, so little surprised to see Thomas able. And now Tim says the link's not working over there on Patreon. I don't know why the link wouldn't be working on Patreon. I mean, I already see a decent amount of people right now that are in that draft from Patreon. So let me refresh the Patreon page, but we got a lot of people from Patreon in here. Oh yeah, never mind. We have a ton of messages saying that the link isn't working for people. I don't know how it can work for some and not others. Let me grab another link and send it out. I apologize for that. This must be a sleeper issue. This isn't a... God, this isn't a Patreon issue. This is a sleeper issue right here. But nonetheless, let me send that out. Okay, the link should be updated over there on Patreon. Yeah, Noah says the link didn't work for him. I apologize. This should take 15 seconds. Just sent out the new link in the live chat, as well as updated that link on Patreon, and I'll send it in Discord as well. The new link, that way we can just get this filled ASAP. I'd imagine that would work, as we got a decent amount of people in this draft room. Tanner says the link is not working. Austin going out says, have you ever considered doing a third round reversal? I mean, yeah, we've done third round reversals a decent amount. I mean, especially for the real Patreon dynasty leagues that we run, the majority of those will be a dynasty startup with a third round reversal, just because it does balance it out, especially last year with how the board played out. Okay, so Thomas says, just got up right now, early for me. Okay, Thomas, let me know how the link worked for you and it's not letting anybody else in. Okay, no, there are only 2 spots left. There are 2 spots in this draft. Don't be telling me the link isn't working for y'all when other people are figuring out how to do this. Let me share the screen. We are going to be in this draft. I know a lot of people over there on Patreon were, ooh, crap. Let me show y'all this real quick. I have no idea why that is not working. But I know a lot of people over there on Patreon were saying that they were tired of me going through and participating in these drafts because they want to see people who know what they're doing draft, which hurts my feelings a little bit. And also they want to be able... They want us to commentate on every pick rather than just focus in on what we are thinking from just the perspective of, as we are 2, 3, 4 picks away and we're upcoming on the clock. So we got 1 spot left. I'm sorry if this link is not working for a couple people. Maybe I'll have to update Sleeper. I have no idea, but looks like this draft is good to go. Like I said, the rookies are going to be in this draft. This is going to be a 12-team startup as well. 12-team super flex startup. So keep that in mind. We're not going to be drafting kickers here. We should probably take away the kicker position. We're not going to bother with that. Everybody should know we're not drafting kickers if you have the rookies involved. Okay, yeah, Dylan, Tanner. We had a lot of people saying the Patreon link or the live chat link here wasn't working for them. I apologize for everybody. I don't know if you need to update Sleeper. I don't know if it's only working for people on desktop. I don't know what's going on. But what I know is we're probably going to end up just taking our guy Kyler Murray here at the 106. I mean, with Kyler Murray, I know this is a quarterback that definitely flamed out down the stretch. And if you're looking at the split of what you had with him before and after the injury, it is definitely concerning to see Kyler Murray trend in that direction. But I want to focus in on the fact that with Kyler, he has continued to progress every single year so far through his NFL career, not to mention that you should see the rushing touchdown rate increase closer to what it was his second season in 2020. Now, I don't think it's going to be coming away with double-digit rushing touchdowns every single season, but I think it's in the range of outcomes for a player like Kyler Murray to be able to go out there and to be able to get 7 rushing touchdowns at minimum every single year. And in a 4-point passing touchdown format, that's going to be a super flex league that is very promising. Now you got Lamar Jackson going at the 107. Lamar obviously has that rushing capability as well. Just a little bit more comfortable with Kyler Murray in his long-term value compared to what we're going to see with Lamar Jackson. Not because Lamar Jackson was drafted that much earlier. I mean, obviously Lamar Jackson drafted 1 season earlier, so it's not a massive difference. But the difference is I believe that Kyler Murray is a better overall thrower of the football. And if we're talking about how they're going to transition 3 to 4 years down the road when they can't rely on running as much, I would actually feel more comfortable with Kyler Murray in that environment than I would with Lamar Jackson. You got Jamar Chase going at the 108 here. I'm completely fine if you wanted to take Jamar Chase even a little bit earlier than this. If you wanted to take Jamar Chase at the 108 instead of Dak Prescott, I mean, I'm fine with it. We ended up taking Dak Prescott, I believe, in the middle of the second round in our last mock draft. I don't think he's in this tier with Lamar, with Kyler, with Burrow, with Herbert, with Josh Allen, with Patrick Mahomes. And real quick, I need to go and pull back up Patreon just so I can have our dynasty rankings to reference as we're discussing these players, so I can give y'all an exact measure of kind of where I'm looking at a player like Dak Prescott in these rankings. And yeah, we have Dak Prescott as our quarterback 7. We have him, directly behind the 6 quarterbacks that went off the board in front of him. Now, with that being said, if you wanted to have Dak Prescott and Lamar Jackson a tier below this top 5 tier, that's personally what I have. I think that I would potentially go through and take these top level wide receivers like Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson based on what we have seen with their prospect profiles, as well as what we saw with the rookie season of each wide receiver in the second year of Justin Jefferson. If you wanted to take them over Lamar Jackson and Dak Prescott, with Dak Prescott clearly demonstrating he has no rushing upside at all at this point of his career, very similar to a Tom Brady, Matthew Stafford, where you're essentially having to bet that he's going to be close to the league leader in overall passing volume if you want him to have that elite level ceiling. And with Lamar Jackson, as we've already discussed, possibly not having the longevity at the position as some of these other options. If you wanted to take these wide receivers over these quarterbacks in round 1, I'm going to be fine with it. Personally, I couldn't see myself taking either Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson over Kyler Murray, even though I know some people disagree with us on that. We got Thomas coming out going Christian McCaffrey at the 112, treating this as if it's a, I don't want to say full-blown redraft league. I personally have Christian McCaffrey ranked as our dynasty running back 4 in the same tier as Javonte Williams. I know a lot of people are going to think that's aggressive with Christian McCaffrey. And I will be the first person to admit there are a lot of things going wrong in the direction of McCaffrey. You're looking at him as a running back that's going into year 3 of his second contract, which is a red flag with where we're talking about these other players like Alvin Kamara and Dalvin Cook. So that's the same red flag that you have with McCaffrey, not to mention that this is also a running back that I think at this point, and y'all know I am always the person to say, don't go through and just talk about injuries, and how we value these players. You need to be looking at the other variables that matter a little bit more as an opportunity and situation projected over the next 3 seasons. Now, with Christian McCaffrey himself, this is one of the very few players that I think we can say is at a higher risk for injuries than other players at the position. Now, with that all being said, I am fine with the Christian McCaffrey investment, probably not at the 112. If you look at DeAndre Swift going back to back, you could say McCaffrey goes to the 201. I think I would prefer Kyle Pitts over Christian McCaffrey, but if we're just talking about the running back rankings in general, I am going to have McCaffrey at the running back 4 spot, because if you look at that 2019 season, and you compare it to Jonathan Taylor this past year, Jonathan Taylor, the best running back year in 2021, Christian McCaffrey ran circles around Jonathan Taylor, 29, close to 30 points per game compared to 23. That is an unbelievable difference. That is essentially the same difference as what you'd have between like the running back 12 and the running back 25 or so. I mean, it's unreal, the ceiling that he has. Now we got Trey Lance going off the board. Y'all know I would have loved to take some Trey Lance at this pick. I think if we're looking at the quarterbacks, I mean, you have seen a tier fall off after Lance goes at the 206. We have Trey Lance as our quarterback 8. We actually have him in the same tier as 2 other guys, but I think we could get one of those players on the way back around in round 3. Now at the running back position, I mean, I'm looking at really nobody of interest here. I think with Akers, obviously he is trending in the right direction based on the ability to actually be able to go out there and make an impact. I think I don't want to say who our secondary option is because I think there's a chance that he makes it back to us. I think we're going to reach on a player that I personally have as my wide receiver 3 in Dynasty. I know a lot of people are not going to agree with me on this selection, but I'm going to be taking A.J. Brown at the 207, still extremely young. Don't know who the second option is going to be in Tennessee this upcoming year. Maybe they decide to lean a little bit more on the passing attack rather than what you would actually have with Derrick Henry. If you look at the efficiency of A.J. Brown for the first 2 seasons of his NFL career, I don't want to say he's similar to Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson. By no means was he similar to that, but if you were looking at the contextual difference between their offenses and what you had in Tennessee, A.J. Brown was that highly efficient wide receiver that it was more efficient than Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson during stretches his rookie season. The difference is the offense didn't have the same level of passing volume. Now, of course, I mean, with that offense not having the same level of passing volume, we can't just assume that if they were to go out there and throw the ball 30% more, that all of a sudden, A.J. Brown would have been Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson. The efficiency would have definitely taken a dip down. It'd be impossible to project anything else. But still, if you were looking at just the talent profile overall for A.J. Brown, I have no concerns with him going forward. He's personally my Dynasty wide receiver 3. I prefer him over CeeDee Lamb as he is not that much different in age. And if you're looking at A.J. Brown, he has had much better seasons than CeeDee Lamb already in his own NFL career. Debo Samuel, I would say the same thing. With Debo Samuel actually in the same draft class as A.J. Brown, but the difference is A.J. Brown came out of Ole Miss after only 3 years compared to Debo Samuel staying all 5 years at South Carolina. So the age difference is pretty steep. I'd imagine that, Debo Samuel's 26 at this point? Yeah, Debo Samuel's 26. A.J. Brown, I mean, he has to be 24. I think DK Metcalf's 23. I'm personally completely off of DK Metcalf at the 208 price tag. I really think that that is a bad selection. If you're looking at where we moved DK Metcalf down in our rankings, I actually have DK Metcalf down there at wide receiver 12. I personally wouldn't consider him over a player like Jalen Waddle. Whereas, I mean, this is a recent development. If you're looking at our Dynasty rankings over there on Patreon, a week ago, I actually had Jalen Waddle and DK Metcalf in the same exact tier. But the more that I thought about it, the more that you actually looked at the production of each wide receiver. And it's not just fueled off of, I mean, a crazy touchdown rate with Jalen Waddle. I mean, it's fueled off of underlying metrics that should carry over to this upcoming season. Jalen Waddle is a wide receiver that outproduced DK Metcalf this past year as a rookie. If you're looking at a points per game standpoint, Jalen Waddle averaged 16 points per game, whereas you're looking at DK Metcalf at 13.5. DK Metcalf wide receiver 30, Jalen Waddle wide receiver 13. Now this is for the first 16 weeks this year. And a big thing is also, and we actually talk about this in a couple of videos that come out 2 days, 3 days, 4 days. I don't know when those videos are coming out, but they're already recorded. If you're looking at the touchdown rate for DK Metcalf, if anything, it's going to be going down a little bit. Whereas if you look at DK Metcalf, this is a wide receiver that this past year had let me pull this up to make sure I'm not butchering this, but I believe he had double-digit touchdowns and still was coming away with, he had 12 touchdowns. Back-to-back years with double-digit touchdowns, and of course you love to see that. And with DK Metcalf, I will acknowledge he is definitely going to have a higher touchdown rate than league average the majority of years in the NFL. But are we going to say that he's going to continue to score 12 touchdowns on 75 targets? Now, I'm no mathematician, but let me pull out this little calculator here and let's see exactly how often DK Metcalf is scoring these touchdowns. So 75 receptions, he's scoring a touchdown on every 6 receptions. Like, that's not going to maintain, not to mention, I'm not saying it's a guarantee, but you have the outside chance that DK Metcalf is no longer with Russell Wilson this upcoming season. So personally, I just see so many different signs and saying why we should be moving down DK Metcalf. I mean, I hate to admit this. Y'all know someone that I have been way too low on historically. I've made a massive mistake undervaluing Deontay Johnson. Deontay Johnson's another example of a player that I think at this point we possibly have to have ranked higher than DK Metcalf. Deontay Johnson, I mean, coming out here and crushing DK Metcalf this past season on a points per game basis. He does it off of volume. And I know that right now it looks like Mason Rudolph is going to be the starting quarterback in Pittsburgh this upcoming season. I would be surprised if this team doesn't go out there and they don't bring in someone like, I mean, even Jimmy Garoppolo. If they bring in Jimmy Garoppolo, and y'all know I am a big Jimmy Garoppolo hater. I mean, I was for a couple different reasons. Y'all know how much Trey Lance I've all had in Dynasty. We were so damn high on him in rookie drafts. Y'all know I've been just praying and crying that they put Trey Lance in, and I thought it was pretty much guaranteed because I'm not a big Jimmy Garoppolo fan. Now, if Jimmy Garoppolo goes over to Pittsburgh this year, and of course this is just an example, there are going to be a ton of different quarterbacks on the move, whether that's Jimmy Garoppolo, whether that's Teddy Bridgewater. Is that going to be a significant downgrade compared to what we saw last year with Ben Roethlisberger? Personally, I don't think so. So I'd be fine making the investment into Deontay Johnson, even over DK Metcalf, as we've seen Deontay Johnson be a target hog wide receiver. They were in the same draft class. Now, Deontay Johnson, very similar to Debo Samuel, is going to be a little bit older. Deontay Johnson will turn 26 this season. I don't know if he stayed 4 or 5 years at Toledo. I can't really remember. Let me pull up Deontay Johnson just so, I mean, y'all know usually I have a photogenic memory of all these players in terms of where they went to college, what their college profiles look like, yada, 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 what year they came out, because I've been a diehard Dynasty fantasy football player for a very long time. No, he actually only stayed 3 years at Toledo before coming out in 2019. But let's get back up on our pick. We got at Treylon Burks going to the 301. Personally, I can't be taking Treylon Burks over someone like J.K. Dobbins. I think we may end up reaching, quote unquote, reaching on our quarterback here. I'm just going through to make sure that we are not missing out on anybody. Interesting to see you got Garrett Wilson and Drake London ahead of T. Higgins in Dynasty ADP. I think Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams are fine values here. You know what? I was thinking about taking a quarterback, but you know, I'm fine with some of the values that we're getting later on at the quarterback position, getting someone like Ryan Tannehill. And also something that I've noticed is I feel a lot of those quarterbacks, I mean, are going undervalued in rounds 7, 8, and 9. So if we want to invest into the quarterbacks in that range, it probably would make more sense for us to take that one stud at the very top and almost wait a little bit later on. So instead of going with our quarterback option here in the 3rd round, we are going to pivot over and go with Mark Andrews. I mean, personally, I'm not having Mark Andrews as our tight end 1 in Dynasty. Y'all know we were making fun of people for doing it last offseason of having Kyle Pitts as their Dynasty tight end 1. We were making fun of it all offseason from a Dynasty value perspective where people were taking Kyle Pitts in rookie drafts, as well as from a redraft perspective where people were taking Kyle Pitts in the 3rd round of best ball drafts. And he came out disappointed from, oh my gosh, Garrett Wilson, Treylon Burks, both off the board, but for Tyreek Hill and Devontae Adams. I will tell you this right now. The rookie pick 101, the rookie pick 102, when we were drafting them as kickers, they were going after this. We were taking the rookie pick 101 here at the 3-4 turn, and we were saying that it was a fantastic value, but we've also talked about the fact that taking that rookie pick 101, if you're using rookie pick placeholders, the pick itself is worth significantly more at this point than going through and actually assigning the player to it, because you have the flexibility to be able to pivot off of said player if they find themselves in a bad landing spot, or if they pull a Hakeem Butler in 2019 and a lot of people think they're going in the 1st, they fall to the 4th. That's not happening with either Treylon Burks or Garrett Wilson, but just an example of the flexibility and how those picks can help you avoid disaster. So I think if you're playing in a draft that has the rookie picks included as kickers, and you're able to get those options at the end of the 3rd, the beginning of the 4th, and you know we were loading up on those selections in previous drafts, I think that clearly demonstrates a value if you're looking at where people are valuing Treylon Burks and Garrett Wilson in this draft in particular. I think to take Treylon Burks and Garrett Wilson ahead of guys like Cooper Kupp, ahead of someone like Tyreek Hill, personally, I cannot get behind it. I can't. That is crazy. I'd love to know your opinion. Okay, Strawberry Jake says a sleeper ADP is corrupting minds on these rookies lately. Yeah, Strawberry Jake in here goes with how we were just clowning on the pick. He can make up. That is crazy. Oh my gosh. George says, I'm insane. So what? Oh my gosh, man. That is crazy. Lamar Jackson, Trey Lance, then Garrett Wilson. I like the first 2 picks. I mean, you know I'm not going to go against the Trey Lance pick, but to take Garrett Wilson at the 307. That is crazy. Hunter says, I've been watching Fantasy Flock for almost a year now, and I just looked and I wasn't subscribed. Had to fix that. Laughed my ass off. Real quick, if you are not subscribed to the channel, fix your life. Go down there, hit that subscribe button. And real quick, also, this is a fantastic team. 111 Najee Harris, 202 Kyle Pitts, 311 Deshaun Watson. As we were kind of going on with the startup earlier, hated the value of Kyle Pitts last offseason, but he comes out, has arguably one of the best rookie tight end seasons of all time, and his dynasty price point doesn't really change. He goes from being an early second round pick in dynasty startup drafts to still being an early second round pick in dynasty startup drafts after having one of the best rookie tight end seasons of all time, commanding a ton of volume, not coming away with that many touchdowns, but as we've discussed, touchdowns are highly volatile, so I'd rather just see the wide tight end in this instance, pretty much a wide receiver, be able to dominate with his receiving yards as well as targets on a per game basis. He does so, and he is still not going in a range where, I mean, you're having to pay the premium for him. If we're talking about, I mean, Kyle Pitts in a tight end premium format, I think you can make an argument that he's even a better pick than the 202. Like, I was off of Kyle Pitts last offseason. I was taking Trey Lance ahead of him, of course, but I think at this point, Kyle Pitts is a fine selection. And even though we're taking Mark Andrews at the 306, I can't sit here and say that Mark Andrews is anything close to Kyle Pitts in terms of their dynasty value. And here, Deontay Johnson of the 402, B Hall 7 has the best team, and it's not even close. As we discussed, I mean, with Deontay Johnson, a player that I've historically been way too low on, I think it's because we are biased with how Deontay Johnson came in and snatched Juju Smith-Schuster's lunch money. And y'all know we were betting on the bounce back from Juju. I was personally calling Juju the best value in Dynasty Fantasy Football back in 2019 after a very disappointing season. Yeah, I was wrong. RIP. I think with Deontay Johnson, we have to finally just say, you know what? He is a top 10 dynasty wide receiver. I have a tier of receivers in Deontay Johnson, Stephon Diggs, DK Metcalf, and T. Higgins as our tier 4 over there with 10 through 13. I think Deontay Johnson to the 402, I definitely prefer that value compared to DK Metcalf at the 208. We have another rookie going off the board with Breece Hall at the 404. T. Higgins goes to the 405. Fantastic selection with T. Higgins here. I mean, I think a couple of these veterans are also really strong buys. If you're looking at Devontae Adams at the 401, Tyreek Hill at the 309, as I've discussed multiple times over, I am fine betting on those veteran wide receivers. I mean, and kind of just riding them into the ground compared to at running back where I'm always going to be the person pivoting off of the veteran like Derrick Henry. Now, I will say, y'all put me in an interesting position. Now, of course, everybody in this draft is either from this live stream or they're from the Patreon community. So the majority of y'all have my rankings and, I mean, clearly have watched the video, so y'all know where I stand. And I think maybe we just get a little bit of groupthink going on of where I'm used to getting into random dynasty leagues from 2 to 3 years ago, and people are drafting the 27-year-old running backs in the late first, early second round, laughing at them, never even considering them. And now you're looking at a draft board where you're getting Alvin Kamara, you're getting Austin Eckler falling to you in the 4th round, and it's actually a price point where you begin to have to consider it. And real quick, Deshaun Watson, I don't know if I said this, he was the player I was considering taking at the 306. But let me go and just skim the board quickly to make sure I'm not missing out on anybody. I think I don't want to say betray everyone, but y'all know I am always the person that's saying fade those veteran running backs, fade the veteran running backs, fade the veteran running backs. I may be taking a veteran running back here. I'm going to be going Dalvin Cook. You know what? I'm going to go Austin Eckler. And as I take Austin Eckler, I need to just completely update these rankings. This is something that really, whenever we get into the height of Dynasty Startup Draft season, I'm going to have a much better idea of this. But for complete transparency, I have Austin Eckler ranked behind Dalvin Cook, behind Alvin Kamara. And now that I am on the clock and actually forced to make this decision, this is a pick that I need to be just completely reversing. Because if we're looking at Austin Eckler, I have less questions about his quarterback play than I do with Kamara or Dalvin Cook. I have to move Alvin Kamara down whenever you get no Sean Payton in New Orleans. And at the same time, with Eckler and Kamara compared to a player like Dalvin Cook, I'm going to be a little more willing to say that Austin Eckler can transition his game nicely later on in his NFL career based on his ability mainly coming from the receiving game rather than being able to handle a 200-plus touch workload as Dalvin Cook would rely on. So that's going to be a live update we just made to our Dynasty Patreon rankings. Those rankings were horrendous, I guess, if we had Austin Eckler in tier 6 and we had Dalvin Cook and Alvin Kamara in tier 5. Embarrassing. No excuse for it. We're going to update that. Joe Mixon, a running back that we were higher on compared to most people last offseason. This offseason, however, I think it's actually a little bit different. I think we have a video coming about this, and I honestly want to say like 5 days or so. I've recorded a lot of videos as of late. I think we have a video coming out in about 5 days where I talk about being lower on Joe Mixon than most people, even though I really have never been that guy. Y'all know I've always been the guy screaming that Joe Mixon is a value. And let me just remind y'all, if you have not already, please, for the love of God, go down there and drop a like on the live stream. Brady says Russell Wilson at the 403 feels like great value. Yeah, I'm honestly willing to go through and buy low on Russell Wilson, just like what we were talking about with those veteran wide receivers, liking Tyreek Hill, liking Devontae Adams, with where they went. Those quarterbacks, even to a greater extent, I mean, those are going to be guys that I'm willing to just ride into the ground, where I'm willing to kind of say, you know what, let's just hold on for the long haul, because with a player like Russell Wilson, I believe he's 33, 34, 33. I mean, I'm not saying that he's Tom Brady. Of course he's not Tom Brady, but I think we can say Russell Wilson maybe is in a similar tier Ben Roethlisberger. I mean, in that instance, you got 5 years left. Todd Gurley didn't even last in the NFL for 5 years. So I think that you're completely fine investing into those veteran quarterbacks at a discount. I actually am not a massive fan of getting, say, Jalen Hurts at the 310. If, and I know that people are going to hate me saying this, the Philadelphia Eagles do not draft a quarterback in the first round, I will be fine with this selection at the 310. Now, I know that it's unlikely that Philadelphia goes out there and takes a quarterback in round 1. But knowing that they have 3 first-round picks in the range where Kenny Pickett, Matt Corral, Sam Howell, Malik Willis are supposed to go, I can tell you this. The Philadelphia Eagles are going to at least try out those quarterbacks. The Philadelphia Eagles are at least going to take a little sneak peek at those options. I am not saying that they are going to draft one, but with 3 first-round picks, while I have Jalen, he's one of my most owned players in Dynasty. We were drafting him in the beginning of the 3rd round of Dynasty rookie drafts in 2020 over and over and over again in Superflex leagues in 2020 because of his rushing upside. We know if he started in the NFL, we'd start him in fantasy. I don't necessarily know if we can just sit here and say that Jalen Hurts is guaranteed to be able to come out and not have any quarterback competition added in, despite what the coaching staff is currently saying. Okay, so let me go and pull up our rankings, kind of see what we have. I believe Nick Chubb's going to be the highest ranked running back. Let me just double check. Nick Chubb running back 13, Derrick Henry running back 16, Montgomery running back 15. Yep, so we have Nick Chubb actually a tier ahead of those players. Quarterback-wise, I think we're probably just going to be passing on this tier of quarterbacks. There's not much of a difference between those guys and what we're going to see later on. Wide receiver, we have Calvin Ridley, Chris Godwin in the same tier. We have DJ Moore in that tier as well. We have DJ Moore 1 pick higher. I think DJ Moore may end up being our selection. I'm not even considering. Darren Waller. Darren Waller's a fantastic pick. I did not specify if this was a tight end premium league beforehand. I don't want to take Darren Waller here and say, oh, it's tight end premium. We're going to get to put Darren Waller in our flex spot and crush y'all. I'm not going to do that to everybody. Instead, we'll take DJ Moore here. I think it's a marginal pick at best. I think you know what? Nick Chubb probably would have been the correct selection. But let's kind of balance it out. Let's take DJ Moore here at the 506. I think that we are in a giant tier of players. DJ Moore, Nick Chubb, Chris Godwin, Calvin Ridley, Darren Waller, all pretty much would have been the same for me. I think if anything, we probably made the incorrect decision in looking at the fact that there were multiple wide receivers left in that tier, whereas there's only 1 running back left in that tier in Nick Chubb. I think Chubb probably should have been the selection. I mean, y'all know my brain's broken at this point, where I've spent years just completely ignoring Nick Chubb in drafts when he's going in the second round, first round of redraft leagues, to usually when I see his name, I am not even considering drafting him. I mean, I drafted, I believe, over 200 best ball teams last year. I think we took Nick Chubb once, and that was because y'all sickos let me get him at the 2-3 turn where he's going in the first round consensus. So I'm used to just ignoring Nick Chubb's name, but I think at this point, considering the contract that he has, that he will have that stable role over the next 2 years, that Browns offensive line isn't going anywhere, I think that Nick Chubb's probably a pretty damn good value in the middle of the 5th round, even though I know the cons with Nick Chubb. I know he's not going to catch passes. I know that he's going to be playing in a committee. As we've said for years now, Nick Chubb, the best committee running back in the NFL. And you're not going to be spending a second-round pick on that player in Dynasty, but if you're going to be getting him in the 5th, I think it's completely fine. He was drafted in 2018 as well. Now, he did stay all 4 years at Georgia because of the nasty knee injury that he had. Let me at least double-check that. I know Nick Chubb's a little bit older than what you have with those other 2018 running backs. Someone like Saquon Barkley. Let me just double-check his college stats to see if he did stay all 4 years or if I'm just BSing right now. Yeah, no, he stayed all 4 years at Georgia, like I thought. Calvin Ridley goes to the 508. Okay, so those 3 wide receivers that were in our same tier, I think you could easily make the argument to have Chris Godwin or Calvin Ridley over DJ Moore. I have these guys a clear tier ahead of Elijah Moore. I actually have a video coming out in a couple days talking about why Elijah Moore is another one of those players that I really liked last offseason. I mean, specifically before his pro day, when nobody was really looking at Elijah Moore as that top-level wide receiver prospect. Based on his production profile, I was a massive fan coming out of Ole Miss, but I have, if anything, am a little bit lower on Elijah Moore at this point compared to most people. As I've already discussed, I probably wouldn't have even considered having Elijah Moore at this pick in particular. I think with Elijah Moore, he's going to be a little bit handicapped by the offense in New York. Also, not to mention that this is a team that could use pick 10 overall and bring in a wide receiver like Garrett Wilson or Drake London to pair with Zach Wilson. Okay, so Roe coming out says, after Darren Waller, it's a teardrop. Happy he fell to me. My man, I think that you had a great pick of Darren Waller, especially if you're looking at the other construction of this team. I mean, centering around Jalen Hurts, where I think if Jalen Hurts is to play this upcoming year, which I personally think is likely, however, like we've discussed, I'm probably not willing to invest the 3rd round pick, over someone like Devontae Adams into him. But if he does play, you know he's going to be a top 10 quarterback in fantasy based off rushing production alone. I kind of view him as a win now asset, despite him being incredibly young. You also have the win now asset in Russell Wilson. So if we're just talking from a roster construction standpoint, this team should be able to put up a ridiculous amount of points this next year. You got Nick Chubb going at the 512 next to another player that I did not like last offseason because he was going much higher than this in Terry McLaurin. But at this point, Terry McLaurin in the 6th, I'm fine with that value with Terry McLaurin. Let me see where I actually have him in our rankings. Yeah, Terry McLaurin was our best wide receiver available. We have him at wide receiver 17 in tier 6. We have him directly behind that tier of DJ Moore, Calvin Ridley, Chris Godwin. Okay, so Kenny Pickett goes to the 602. David Montgomery, the 603. Like the Montgomery pick as well. I mean, if you're looking just at a running back that profiles to be a 3-9 guy on his rookie contract, Montgomery is that. Zach Wilson goes to the 604. Personally, I'm probably going to be passing on Zach Wilson here. I mean, with a player like Mac Jones, I understand this quarterback that doesn't really have that much rushing upside, and I know that Zach Wilson did look a lot better at the end of the season than he did at the beginning of the year. But if you're looking at the adjusted yards per attempt that Zach Wilson had his rookie season, literally there's a laundry list of quarterbacks that failed in spectacular fashion and flamed out of the NFL. Guys like, Josh Rosen, Dwayne Haskins. I know people are very upset when I bring up their names, but they are quarterbacks that headline this list, whereas the one quarterback that is able to overcome that horrendous rookie season in Josh Allen, everybody will point to that guy saying, no, Josh Allen, look, Justin Fields was horrible his rookie season. It's the situation. Look at Josh Allen. Trevor Lawrence was horrible his rookie season. It's the situation. Look at Josh Allen. Zach Wilson was horrible his rookie season. It's the situation. Look at Josh Allen. That's one example that everybody can go and point to. It's like when someone's favorite rookie in Dynasty gets drafted in the 6th round, they go, oh, look at Antonio Brown. Look at Tom Brady. Yeah, let's pick some outliers on the end of the spectrum, and let's ignore the vast sea of real data points that we have. Once those rookies failed, as we discussed earlier this year, I was willing to sell them high immediately. We were screaming to sell Lawrence, Justin Fields for a player like Matthew Stafford. But now we are up on the clock, and I think that, I don't want to say what position we're probably going. One thing is sleeper ADP. This is why it's so helpful to have my dynasty rankings up. Because like if you're drafting on underdog or something where there's a lot of money in those drafts, so you know ADP is going to be pretty much set. And of course, you don't just pick the highest player on ADP, but you only have to look at the first 5 or 6 names. Sleeper's a little bit different. A lot of these drafts are just complete garbage. So this ADP does not really help you out much. That's why I have to have these rankings pulled up while we do it. I think we're probably going to end up going QB here. Let's go Mac Jones. I literally have a video coming out talking about why I don't love Mac Jones with his Dynasty League ADP, but I mean, his ADP is pretty much, I want to say, an entire round higher than this. Definitely ahead of guys like Kirk Cousins, Zach Wilson, Kenny Pickett. I simply don't understand the investment into Zach Wilson over someone like Mac Jones, even though Mac Jones does have a limited ceiling. I mean, I think that Mac Jones could be a player that has the job security you're looking for over the next 4 years, yet he probably is never going to be able to access that top 5 quarterback ceiling that we kind of are all chasing. Still, I mean, if we're looking at a player like Zach Wilson, Kirk Cousins, are we sure that they have that ceiling? Personally, I am not. And at the same time, if we're talking about their floor, I think that Mac Jones probably has a higher floor as well. Are we going to be that surprised if Kirk Cousins is not a starting quarterback in 2023? Okay, but yeah, if you're looking at my quarterback rankings, I have Mac Jones as quarterback 16. I have him a tier ahead of Ryan Tannehill, Tua Tagovailoa, and Zach Wilson. I have Mac Jones at quarterback 16, Zach Wilson at quarterback 19, Kirk Cousins at quarterback 20. Jacobs goes off the board at the 608, Elijah Mitchell at the 609, completely fine with both of those selections. Okay, so let me see. Okay, Elijah Mitchell to 609. Nothing changed. So let's see how far Aaron Jones falls. I believe Aaron Jones and Zeke went in the 9th round of whenever we did this. I mean, our last mock draft. And real quick, let me give a big thank you for everybody who is in this live draft room right now and has not auto drafted. I don't think we've had a single auto draft the entire time. And I like what Thomas has done here. I mean, after you take McCaffrey at the 112, I feel like you kind of have to go through and you have to build around just a team that's going to be competitive in 2022. So taking the stack of Rodgers and Devontae Adams makes a lot of sense. I think that is an extremely balanced team. Hopkins goes to the 611. Love the buy low opportunity on DeAndre Hopkins. It's a wide receiver that if you're looking at just the ceiling that you have this upcoming year, I don't think you should be surprised that DeAndre Hopkins is yet again for, I mean, pretty much, I believe, out of the past 8 years, he has been a top 6 wide receiver, 7 of them. I could be wrong. You shouldn't be surprised if he is that high-end wide receiver 1 yet again this upcoming season. The first year that he has dealt with really any injury whatsoever. I believe the most games he missed in a single, I mean, I believe if you add up every single year of DeAndre Hopkins' career going into 2021, he had missed 1 game. 1. Completely fine with him at the 611. I think he would have been my pick if he fell back to us at the 706. Okay, Ayuk goes to the 701. Let me pull up my own dynasty rankings, kind of figure out where we're going to go. There are a couple players left in that DeAndre Hopkins tier for me at wide receiver. If we're looking at our running back rankings, the best running back available for us, I believe, is going to be Michael Carter. Yeah, Michael Carter and A.J. Dillon are in the same tier as the best available running backs for us at this point. Wide receivers, that tier, and I can say this because honestly, I don't really care if any of these guys fall to us. They're all about the same to me. At wide receiver, we have Hollywood Brown, Michael Pittman, Keenan Allen, all available in the same tier. Tight end, Dallas Goedert is going to be our guy, but we're not taking a tight end whenever we got Andrews in the 3rd. Quarterback, Matt Corral, I think is a fine value. If you look at Matt Corral, he will have some rushing upside. I think we actually may want to take Matt Corral here. Because if we're talking about players that could skyrocket in dynasty value, Matt Corral goes to the 703. But if you're talking about a player that can skyrocket in dynasty value, what has to happen for us to take Tua Tagovailoa, for him to become, I don't want to say a top 6 quarterback in Dynasty because he's not cracking this tier. It simply is not happening. But what has to happen for us to take a player in this range, in the 7th round, out of all these players that we mentioned, someone like Michael Carter, someone like A.J. Dillon, what has to happen for them to become 2nd round picks, to be in this A.J. Brown, DK Metcalf, Jalen Waddle, Cam Akers tier? Really, I guess if you wanted to make an argument for the only player that could do that out of this range, including the wide receivers, and this maybe is a good way to view the draft room at this point, because this is almost how I was going to talk myself into taking Matt Corral. Whereas if you know Matt Corral goes in the top 10 in the NFL draft, which right now he's not projected to, he's supposed to be a mid-round 1 selection, but regardless, it's about the same thing if you go at 10 and if you go at 15. Dillon goes to the 705, so that kind of goes out the window for that upside pick that we could have had. But if you do get that season for Matt Corral where he comes out, he has 400 rushing yards, and to go along with this, he is just a top 10 quarterback in fantasy, you know immediately this is going to be an option that's going in the 2nd round of startups next year. And there are really very few other players that we could be looking at that fit that same mold. I think we're going to make a pick that a lot of people hate. We're going to make a pick that I know a lot of y'all are not going to be fond of. It kind of is what it is. I think if you're looking at the age, if you're looking at the production from last year, and if you're looking at the projection for this upcoming season, I am fine taking Hollywood Brown at the 706. Now, obviously, Hollywood had, a little bit, I don't want to say of a disappointing end of the year because the entire Baltimore Ravens offense did with the injury of Lamar Jackson. But if we remember what Hollywood Brown did, before Lamar went down. So Lamar Jackson got injured in week 10. So let's go and let's look at weeks 1 through 9 for Hollywood Brown in his points per game. And then keep in mind, this is a season that Hollywood Brown was 24 years old. He's going to turn 25 this offseason. In weeks 1 through 9 this year, Hollywood Brown averaged 18.8 points per game. And I'll be the first person to admit that, you hear that number and it's probably not going to maintain. Because through those 9 weeks, which were only 8 games because he had a bye week in week 8, I believe he scored 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 touchdowns. So he scored 6 touchdowns through 8 games. That puts him on pace for essentially 12 touchdowns in the season. Hollywood Brown is not going to be a player coming away with double-digit touchdowns every single year. So that pretty much 19 points per game mark, he is going to be coming down from that. But if we look at where 19 points per game would stack up for the wide receiver position this past year, let's just filter down to wide receivers to make sure I am having everything correct. That 19 points per game mark would have had Hollywood Brown as the wide receiver 7. If we take out Antonio Brown, because he only played like 5 games, if we take out Antonio Brown, he would have been the wide receiver 6, only behind Cooper Kupp, Devontae Adams, Debo Samuel, Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill. He was in the same draft class as guys like Debo Samuel, A.J. Brown, DK Metcalf. I know a lot of people aren't fond of Hollywood. I'm going to be fine taking him at the 706. I think maybe, if anything, is a little bit undervalued in Dynasty. Okay, so MC coming out says, just became a Patreon and looking forward to test out your rankings. Thank you, my friend, of course, for joining the flock over there on Patreon. And real quick, if you joined the flock on Patreon or if you've done this recently, for the love of God, shoot me a DM ASAP. I'd be happy to get you set up with everything that we have over there on Patreon. And if you have any questions as well, I'll always happy to answer any questions over on Patreon. Maybe if you message me like week 3 of the NFL season, or if you message me during the season, I'm probably not going to see it because we're making 4 videos a day and we're live streaming 4 hours every single night. But if you message me in the off season, I'll definitely see your Patreon message. Okay, so Michael Carter at the 7-11. I think Michael Carter probably would have been our selection if we decided not to go Hollywood Brown. With Michael Carter, this was a running back that we were off of in rookie drafts last offseason, and I think we were just wrong. The entire Dynasty community was coming out talking about how much they liked Michael Carter, and we were looking at the draft capital that he had from the New York Jets. We were saying, well, historically speaking, a running back that's going in the beginning of the 4th round. They've been drastically overvalued by the Dynasty fantasy football community. God, there's the perfect example of this. I believe it was from the 2016 draft. Not Justin Forsett. I got to figure this out. This is going to kill me. If it's like on the tip of my tongue. I believe it was 2015, maybe? Baltimore Ravens running back goes at the beginning of the fourth. A lot of the people in the Dynasty community actually liked him before the NFL draft, so he goes at the beginning of the fourth round. Everybody buys into him being a first-round selection. Kenneth Dixon. Yeah, Kenneth Dixon in the 2016 draft. That was the year that we thought, just couldn't remember the name. I mean, actually ended up, I believe, having a Dynasty ADP of like at the 108 to the 110, despite going at pick 134 in that 2016 NFL draft. And just historically speaking, you've seen those players, the Dynasty community goes out of their way to say, hell, this running back, even though it goes in day 3, has the profile where he has the ceiling where we can still draft him as a late first, early second round rookie pick. Historically speaking, that's been a bad bet. So we kind of ignored the fact that Michael Carter did have, I mean, he did crack every minimum threshold in our Dynasty rookie draft guide, but we were saying, hell, he doesn't get the team investment. We're not ranking him ahead of some of those other options. And Michael Carter definitely flashes rookie, especially in the receiving game, which is what most people are excited about to begin with. Tannehill at the 804, love the Tannehill pick. Okay, so let's get ready. Leonard Fournette, I believe, is our best running back available. Now, with Leonard Fournette, not going to lie, I've had a very hard time adjusting the rankings of what we have seen. You know what? There's no reason that we have this player ranked so low. We got to move him up. Yeah, with Leonard Fournette, I think we've had a very hard time adjusting the rankings on those Tampa Bay Buccaneers players, especially the free agents like Chris Godwin and Fournette, because obviously they can find their way out of that scenario. I've never been a big Tua fan, but at the 807, like, what's the difference between Tua Tagovailoa and Mac Jones? If we were willing to take Mac Jones at the 607, what's the difference between him and Tua here? Y'all know I've also not been a big Amara St. Brown fan when people are talking about St. Brown being a better rookie over someone like Devonta Smith, when people are talking about St. Brown being a better rookie over someone like Elijah Moore. But I think at this point, Amara St. Brown, despite the added target competition that he is going to be facing this upcoming season in Detroit, is a fine value here. Is actually my highest ranked wide receiver. We're going to go Tua over St. Brown. I think if you wanted to go St. Brown's the best player available on the board. Love the Michael Thomas selection here by Thomas. I think Michael Thomas was the last wide receiver I would have taken over St. Brown. Let me just double check to make sure my rankings back that up as well. Yeah, we have St. Brown ranked as wide receiver 29. We have him directly behind Jerry Jeudy, Elijah Moore, Brandon Ayuk, Michael Thomas, Amari Cooper, and Mike Evans. We have him ahead of Rashad Bateman, Chase Claypool, and Darnell Mooney. Okay, Claypool goes to the 808. And keep in mind, if you're playing in a regular Dynasty starter draft, I mean, everybody a part of this draft is a part of the flock. Okay, so everybody here, we're a little bit in our own bubble. So you're going to see guys like Trey Lance go a lot earlier than you would see in most, because everybody here is pretty much higher on Trey Lance. You're going to see Cam Akers go a little bit higher than most. And you're going to see players like Amara St. Brown fall a little bit. I mean, who are some of those? You're going to see those veteran running backs fall a little bit. I mean, it's funny when someone new joins Patreon and they send me their Dynasty startup draft, and it's with a bunch of people that probably aren't used to playing Dynasty fantasy football and they're new to it. You see, I mean, just into the first here, Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara, Joe Mixon, and I'm sitting there going, oh my God, thank God you didn't take those players, or that would have just been devastating. Jameson Williams over St. Brown. Oh my gosh. I think Jameson Williams is probably going to be my most hated rookie this year. Oh my gosh. I like Jameson Williams to the 809. This is a wide receiver. I at least like the fact that he's going behind Chris Olave, because pretty much every mock draft that I see, people are taking Jameson Williams over Chris Olave. Not NFL mock drafts, but Dynasty mock drafts. Despite the fact that Jameson Williams, I mean, that same offense at Ohio State at the same exact age. Now, Chris Olave, I mean, was technically a year older than Jameson Williams. If you're looking at freshman versus sophomore, junior versus sophomore, whatever the hell it is. But Chris Olave went to Ohio State at 17 years old, and he ran laps around Williams while they were there. Williams didn't break out till his junior year, having to transfer to Alabama, also having a significant injury. I am going to be completely off of Williams. And a lot of drafts, you see him going higher than this. I mean, you see him going before Chris Olave, which I can't get behind. Now, Derek Carr goes at the 811. Okay, Bob says, how do you get in Patreon? The link should be in the description of the video. It's in the description of the video. And it's pinned to the top of like every comment section. Thomas says, every single rookie in this draft was too early. You know what would be really funny to do, Thomas, is if we went through and looked at where the rookie draft picks were going whenever we did the startup draft that way. Like whenever you saw like, oh, the 10th rookie pick went off at the 808 versus where did the 10th rookie go off the board in this draft? Because I think the rookies were actually more expensive once you attach the names to them compared to when you were just taking the rookie picks. And if anything, I think you should probably be valuing those rookie picks higher. Okay. So let's pull up our dynasty rankings real quick. If we're talking wide receivers, Darnell Mooney was our best ranked wide receiver from here. And Darnell Mooney is another player that you should expect to go a little bit higher if you're playing in a random dynasty startup draft than you're going to see in a flock league. Okay, so now our next best ranked wide receiver is actually someone that I'm not going to mention because he will definitely make it back to us with the next round. So I'm probably going to be ignoring the wide receiver position. If we're looking at running back, our next best option is going to be Miles Sanders. We actually have Miles Sanders ranked ahead of Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I don't even think we want to go tight end. What quarterbacks are available? So we could say, I mean, Sanders 2019, still on his rookie contract. Now, this is a team that doesn't really have the certainty at the running back position behind him. I believe you have no Boston Scott as well as no Jordan Howard signed for next year. Of course, they could decide to bring back one of those running backs. They could decide to deploy Kenneth Gainwell in a little bit more of an active committee with Miles Sanders. That's all in the range of outcomes. Let's go Miles Sanders. F it. It's a mock draft. Y'all know I like Miles Sanders in 2019. So let's take him here. If you don't know a little bit about Miles Sanders, actually was a 5-star prospect, the #1 running back in the country, going to Penn State. Gets parked behind Saquon Barkley, his true freshman and true sophomore year. Doesn't really break out at Penn State until his true junior season. And one reason I'm always a little bit biased for Miles Sanders, back in 2019, we were making videos before the NFL Combine screaming that Miles Sanders was the running back one in that draft class. The Miles Sanders was better than Josh Jacobs. The Miles Sanders was better than David Montgomery. And now I know that right now that looks stupid. But back in the day, it looked like we were on level 100 whenever by the end of that offseason, there was that debate going on between Miles Sanders and David Montgomery on pretty much every single podcast. Miles Sanders crushed the rookie year. So I was living on cloud 9, living on top of the world. And of course, Miles Sanders has gone downhill every year since then. And actually, apologize. I didn't know Hunter Renfrow was available. I don't think we would have taken Renfrow over Miles Sanders, but no, Hunter Renfrow was the second best wide receiver we ranked. The Kadarius Toney was our highest ranked wide receiver available. I mean, with Kadarius Toney, I believe he had a single game with 181 receiving yards his rookie season. Obviously wasn't able to stay healthy. I think the coaching staff coming in should be able to help Kadarius Toney in a more creative fashion. I think that Kadarius Toney, I don't want to say he is a better Gabriel Davis. He's probably a more athletic Gabriel Davis, however. Okay, so now let's go through and see. Ashton says, do you usually draft with rookies before the NFL draft or kickers for draft picks? I usually like throwing the kickers on for draft picks. I've always explained it to people because we've had a lot of people push back for me because I've commissioned leagues since about 2016, 2015 maybe. I started playing in 2014. I don't know when I first started commissioning leagues, but I've always preferred including the rookie picks. And my explanation for this is when you are playing Dynasty Fantasy Football, when do you see the most trades in your league? During drafts, whether that's the startup draft, whether that's the rookie draft, doesn't matter. During drafts, that's when you're going to see the most trades done. So if you're going to get a startup draft going in February, why not have the league? Because the entire point you play Dynasty Fantasy Football is to have fun. I don't think anybody's doing this. I mean, no, just knowing that most Dynasty leagues, the buy-in at most is what, $400? You're not, how many leagues would you have to grind out and at what ROI for you to be able to turn this into a profession? If you're playing high stakes Dynasty leagues, the sites that host high stakes Dynasty leagues are taking a 25% rake. I mean, there are people that play redraft fantasy football and they do so full time. Nobody's playing Dynasty full time and making a living off Dynasty unless you're producing content. So the reason you do this is more fun. And what's more fun? 2 drafts with a ton of trades, or 1 draft and then sitting on your hands the rest of the offseason. That's why I think it's a lot more fun to have the startup draft, whether you're drafting in February or whether you're drafting in March, with the rookie picks instead of the actual rookies. So instead of taking Treylon Burks here at the 301, you take the rookie pick 101. That way you have those picks to trade throughout the entire offseason as well. And then once you get to May and you have your rookie draft, then you get the additional activity. You get everybody checking back into the league and you get those trades going as well. Because, I mean, trades equal fun. Fun is the reason you do this. Okay, so now Romandre Stephenson at the 10:02. Okay, so you got here this team deciding, I believe this is actually, I could be wrong. I think this is row. I believe, I could be wrong. Going 4 running backs in a row after deciding to pass on the running back position through the first 5 rounds. I wonder if that's because he felt like he needed running backs in this roster to balance it out. I hope that's not the reason, because he shouldn't be drafted for team need at this point. Should just be drafting for value. But maybe he just thought it was the best value available. And real quick, I want to point this out to you, my friend. I hate the Tony Pollard selection. I hate it with a passion. Because with Tony Pollard, if you're looking at the contract for Ezekiel Elliott, I'm the first person to say, Tony Pollard, if Zeke goes down, will be a top 5 running back in fantasy. Nobody is denying that. And with Tony Pollard, he'll have a role with Ezekiel Elliott on this team next year. However, is that role going to be large enough where we can actually start Tony Pollard with confidence? Nope, it wasn't this past year. So if you can't start Tony Pollard in games that Ezekiel Elliott's active, and you're really only rostering him because he has that top 5 running back ceiling if Ezekiel Elliott goes down, he is arguably one of the most premium handcuff running backs in fantasy. But who else has the exact same profile, the exact same one, that you can't start him when the starting running back is in there, but the second he goes down, you know he's a top 5 running back in fantasy? Alexander Madison. Now, maybe I'm viewing this in the wrong light. Maybe it's not that Tony Pollard is overrated in Dynasty based on his talent. Maybe it's Alexander Madison is underrated, but it's because you can get Alexander Madison. Like, look, Alexander Madison, I mean, I don't know if he's going to go off the board now because we just started discussing him, but it's a running back that is an ADP of 113. I mean, if you're looking at where he's going to be going in a regular draft, he's going here in round 11 or 12, whereas taking Tony Pollard in round 8, when in my opinion, they're the exact same player. Personally, I don't get the love with Pollard. Okay, Dawson Knox goes to the 10:06. Okay, Dotson's a wide receiver I don't really like that much. I know a lot of people love Dotson. I mean, but he did take all 4 years there. He didn't break out till his junior season. Really, I prefer to see that breakout age. We discussed this in our Dynasty Rookie Draft Guide, showing the historical hit rates that you want that player to break out by their second year, whether that's their redshirt freshman, whether that's their true sophomore season. That's when you want the breakout. And he did not give that for you. For looking at running backs, honestly, my favorite running back, nobody's going to agree with me on. I think we may go down the path of veteran wide receiver, or we take tight end here. Lockett, Dotson, or we're going to go Lockett. Just double check. This is why I have to have the rankings pulled up. I think Fant could be in consideration here, especially if you're considering the outside chance that this team's actually able to make a play for a quarterback this offseason. Let's go Lockett at the 10:07. You could always decide to just take Tom Brady here in the middle of the 10th, just from, I mean, a motivational standpoint. Like, obviously, you're not going to be able to put him in the starting lineup, but to be able to have the name Tom Brady down there on the bench, maybe that's just going to boost the other players in your starting lineup to get a higher points per game. You don't know. You don't know. Crazier things have happened. Okay, so Lockett. Please let me know what y'all are thinking. Please let me know what y'all are thinking about Tyler Lockett here. And Bob coming out talking about Dearness Johnson kind of being the same in Cleveland. I would agree with that. Now, the issue is there are so many different variables that have to go right for Dearness Johnson to be placed in that situation. Obviously, with Kareem Hunt, he doesn't have a contract for 2023. But we have to assume a couple things. We have to assume that, A, the Cleveland Browns don't bring back Kareem Hunt. And B, if they let Kareem Hunt walk and they get that money saved on the books, then they're able to go and invest in, I mean, they don't choose to just invest in to a veteran running back to bring in to be, I mean, a part-time running back. We have to assume that they don't bring in another option And we also have to assume that multiple years down the line, this Cleveland Browns offensive line is still elite. So there's definitely a reason that Deandre Johnson is going to be ranked lower than what you would have with someone like Tony Pollard and with someone like Alexander Madison. And it's because while he does have the path to eventually becoming that high-end premium handcuff running back, I don't see it for right now. Dustin says, don't love the Lockett pick, but I personally love Dotson as a prospect. Maybe I'm just missing something with Dotson, because I have heard a lot of people on Patreon saying that we're ranking Dotson too low. But I mean, if I'm looking at him, this is a wide receiver. And of course, I mean, I'm never going to come out here and tell you, oh, I watched the film. I grinded the tape. But this is a wide receiver that doesn't look like he's going to be an elite level athlete. As we discussed, he was dominant. I will give him that. Like, let's look up Penn State stats this past year. Okay, Adam Thielen at the 10-10. Okay, so this is a team that only had 268 passing yards per game. And you had Dotson out there with about 90 actually almost 100 receiving yards, it looks like. So if we do some simple math, let's figure out the percentage of just overall passing yards he accounted for in this Penn State offense. Now, keep in mind, you have to discount this because remember, Devonta Smith last year was dominant at Alabama, put up one of the best college wide receiver seasons of all time. And everybody was out there saying, doesn't matter, his fourth season. Doesn't matter, it was his fourth season. Doesn't matter, it was his fourth season. Even though he had dealt with, Jerry Jeudy and Henry Ruggs and Jalen Waddle his entire career at Alabama. People were willing to just throw that in your face every single time, even though I don't hear that really nearly as much with Dotson. So if we look at the percentage of the starting lineup output that he was accounting for, about 36.7% of just his college receiving yards. I mean, if you're looking at that compared to a lot of these other prospects, guys like Treylon Burks, someone like Drake London, they're running laps around him, and they're doing so at a much younger age as well. They're doing so their true sophomore years, their true junior years, whereas with Dotson, it's taken until his senior year, his junior year to break out, his senior year to show that level of dominance. So personally, I'm not a massive Dotson fan, even though he should get the adequate draft capital. He should go in the late first, early second. Goff, Jimmy Garoppolo with the 1102 and the 1103. And I would say that Dotson's a fine selection if you want to consider taking him here, like in the 11th round. Like, my main issue with Dotson is when people are looking at him compared to Chris Olave, where Olave broke out at like 19 years old. He was actually dominant there at some points at the same age, outproduced Garrett Wilson. Completely left Jameson Williams on the side of the field. Devin Singletary was the player we were hoping made it back to us. When y'all know we said that we looked at the running back position, there was one guy that I liked, but he was really far down ADP. So I thought we were actually possibly going to be able to get him on the way back around. That player was Devin Singletary. Fantastic selection at the 1104 there. Fantastic pick. Okay, James Robinson at the 1105. Okay, let me pull up my rankings. If we're looking at best available wide receiver, I believe we have actually Gallup as well as Robert Woods back-to-back in that category. At running back, James Conner is going to be our best available. I've pretty much been screaming to fade James Conner at least over the past month or so, but that was back when James Conner in redraft formats was going in the third round, and in dynasty leagues you were seeing James Conner go in the 6th alongside Josh Jacobs. Now that you're getting people finally to understand that James Conner is a free agent this offseason, we don't know if he'll be back in Arizona, I actually think that James Conner is a fine value here. If you're looking at our dynasty rankings on James Conner, we have him in the same tier as Tony Pollard, Damian Harris, Devin Singletary, and Rashad Penny. Maybe we spent a little bit too long talking about this. This Connor pick is so damn bad. We're going to take Connor. It is what it is. Oh my gosh. We've just spent all season talking about why I don't like valuing James Conner highly in Dynasty. But if we're getting him at the 1106, at some point we kind of just have to pull the trigger. The thing is, I either have to draft James Conner there or I have to move him down our rankings. It's probably a little bit of a combination of both. Now that we actually were faced with this decision, I can tell you confidently that I do prefer having Devin Singletary over James Conner. Like, I'd have been a lot more excited to get Singletary over Conner there, considering he's on his rookie contract and one of the most prolific offenses in the NFL. So I'm going to update these rankings and move Devin Singletary ahead of James Conner and drop James Conner down to running back 29. But I think we are going to end up taking him here in the 11th round, just hoping that he goes back to Arizona, especially when we have Kyler Murray in the first. Hunar coming out says, are we really drafting James Robinson? Personally, I do not have James Robinson in this range. I have James Robinson as our running back 33. I actually have him behind Kareem Hunt, behind Rashad Penny, behind James Conner, behind Devin Singletary, all those guys that went ahead of him. And I probably would have taken Michael Gallup and Robert Woods as well. Desmond Ritter goes to the 11-10. Going to be a fantastic selection of Desmond Ritter ends up going in the first round of the NFL draft. As of now, that looks a little unlikely. You got Gabriel Davis going at the 11-12. So obviously, as a player that, wasn't coming close to this until putting up arguably one of the best playoff games of all time at the wide receiver position in his second year in Buffalo. He got no Emmanuel Sanders this upcoming season. Got a 34-year-old Cole Beasley, who's also, possibly a cap casualty. So Gabriel Davis could easily be the wide receiver 2 on one of the most prolific offenses in the NFL. I am completely fine if you want to take him here at the 11-12. After the big blow-up game, I sent out a tweet asking, who ranked these wide receivers in Dynasty. Chase Claypool, Hunter Renfrow, Jerry Jeudy, and Gabriel Davis. A lot of people were saying they wanted Gabriel Davis over all those guys. Of course, that was the day after the big game, and I didn't agree with any of those players. I would definitely still have Jerry Jeudy, Chase Claypool, and etc. ranked over Gabriel Davis. But again, I'm here at the 11-12. Fantastic pick. Okay, so Robert Woods at the 12-01. Reeve coming out says, so what is Dynasty Fantasy Football? Dynasty Football is where you draft a team and you have that team from now till the end of time. Now, of course, that's in a perfect world. In reality, you're going to go through and you're going to be making trades nonstop. So if you draft a player like, say, Austin Eckler at the 407, maybe we have Austin Eckler until he hangs it up, until he retires. Probably would happen if this was a real league. Austin Eckler probably would be off this team by the time we got to week 4. After talking all this crap about Dotson, please don't be mad if I decide to take Dotson here at the 12-06. Van Jefferson goes to the 12-05. Please don't be mad at me if I decide to take Dotson. I'm either going to take Dotson or Jordan Love. Kareem Hunt goes to the 12-06. I just feel like a fraud because here when we were talking about Dotson up 2 rounds before, we're talking about why I did not like him, but he was at the top of ADP. He was the #1 player according to ADP when we made this Tyler Lockett selection. Why I was talking about not liking to take Dotson in that range or comparing him to someone like Chris Olave who went back, almost 70 picks previously. But if we're getting Dotson at the 12-07, kind of have to from a value perspective. No, I'm gonna treat this a real league. I feel crappy because probably a small reason that he fell here to the 12-07 is me talking a bunch of crap on him. It is what it is. Luke coming out says another draft of this question mark. Oh no, my friend, we're gonna be getting so many drafts going this year. I'm gonna try to get y'all a draft a week. I'm actually flying out of Florida to go skiing and crap on February 13th. So there are going to be videos updated every single day. I just won't be able to live stream during that time period. So what I'll probably end up doing is I'll probably end up live streaming February 12th. So exactly a week from now with our next live draft. Okay, so Joshua Palmer at the 12-9. I actually think Palmer may be a little bit overvalued here. Of course, with Joshua Palmer as a wide receiver that could step up into a more prominent role with the departure potentially of Mike Williams and Jalen Guyton. However, we don't know if Mike Williams is going to be gone. And at the same time, to go along with this, with Joshua Palmer, he wasn't a great prospect coming out of Tennessee. Now, with him, I know we had a couple of weeks where I thought he had better weeks than this. I thought he had some spike weeks here. Did he not? He had a 17-point game. I thought he had 2 bigger weeks than that, but it is what it is. Let me go down and just take a screenshot of this so I can get your reactions to this on Twitter. Let me go and thank you, of course, so much for everybody who participated in this draft. And I believe we did not have a single auto pick the entire time. So thank you so much for that. Really hope that everybody else enjoyed this draft. Promise you I'll get you another one of these going on February 12th, and we'll get a ton of real leagues going as well throughout the course of the entire offseason. So thank you again. Really hope that y'all have a great day. Really hope we get to see you out with the video tomorrow. Drop that like, subscribe to the channel, join the flock on Patreon, and yeah, that's it. Have a great day.